This is Kerry Artak with Wicked Stocks, bringing you the weekly DIA and IWM for Monday, December 13th, 2021. The Triple Q is missing from this lineup because it has gone daily now. So on Monday, December 13th, we start the first daily Triple Q report along with the daily SPY report. Those two are sort of a duo now that will be put out daily. And from here on out, well, at least for the next month or so, we've got a weekly DIA and IWM. And I do think that in January, there will also be a daily IWM that'll round out the daily ETF analysis. And then the question, of course, is will I continue with the weekly DIA or not? We will see at that point in time. Anyway, this is the lineup for this week, the DIA and IWM. Before I jump into the charts, just want to encourage you to please click like if you like this weekly report on the DIA and IWM. And also subscribe. Subscribing to the Wicked Stocks YouTube channel will provide you notification each and every time any new content has been uploaded to the Wicked Stocks YouTube channel. That includes the weekly DIA and IWM, as well as the daily SPY report and the daily Triple Q report. So let's jump into the charts. We'll start with the Dow or the DIA, the Spider Dow Jones Industrial Average ETF, symbol DIA. We did a couple of weeks ago test that channel bottom that this week is at 342.71. That had been an objective for several weeks following a long-term buy signal that I'm not even showing anymore. If you've been following this weekly analysis, you know what I'm talking about. And if you want to see what that is, I would suggest just going back 5 or 6 weeks, 7 weeks or so on this weekly video series, and you can see exactly what I'm talking about. But as I've been mentioning, the 342.71 formation, which we did test a couple of weeks ago, can contain quarterly selling pressures, possibly longer-term selling pressures. And from here, we can, over the next, and I've been saying month or two, but it could actually be this week, 367.58, the channel top. And in fact, holding above the move low high. In other words, we put out a move low a couple of weeks ago. The high of that move, the high of that weekly bar is 352.77. So this is sort of early week support, possibly weekly support. It could contain weekly selling pressures, and above which we actually may this week test 367.58, where we could top out into January trade and from there fall back to the 342.71 channel bottom within a matter of a month or two. Given the presently heightened volatility, could be within a week or two. Now, if we did close above 367.58 at the end of any week, and we've been here before. We were here about 6 weeks ago in a very similar structure. We settled above, and then a week or two later, we came falling back to elicit a failed long-term buy signal that was, in essence, a valid sign of near to mid-term weakness, which did play out down to that 342.71 channel bottom. But if we get it again, if we settle again above a very similar structure that this week is at 367.58, I will then go with a long-term buy signal that should, over the 3 to 5 months to follow, it could take longer than that depending on what happens on the way up. There will be certain hurdles on the way up that I will be showing you on a week-by-week basis clearly, but in terms of the broad brush stroke, closing above 367.58, we should, I'm going to say by the end of the second quarter, or sooner, reach that 418.01 rising channel top, which can contain annual buying pressures if or when tested. And once again, it's not really considered a target unless we close this week above 367.58. Until then, we can top out at 367.58 and fall back into the low 340s again, that 342.71 channel bottom. Let's move on to the IWM, or the Russell 2000, the iShares Russell 2000 ETF, IWM. It's called the small cap index. I think the average capitalization, though, is close to $4 billion, which, as far as I know, I think that's more the smaller mid cap range. But in any event, This is let's just call it the small to mid cap index. 215.08. We tested it a couple of weeks ago. We also tested it last week. And as I've been saying, it has been a target now it was a target for the better part of a month after a failed long-term buy signal. If you've been watching the IWM video series, the DIA IWM, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This was a target. It has performed well. 215.08 can contain quarterly selling pressures, which is to say through Q1, quite possibly well into 2022. And from here, the channel top, presently at 245.35, is in reach. I'm going to say by the end of January, perhaps. In fact, possibly over the next few weeks, if we can get up and over 230.31 this week. So 230.31 is a level that can contain weekly buying pressures. And from there, we can fall back to the 215.08 channel bottom within a matter of a week or two. But if we can close above 230.31, then we're probably just 2 to 3 weeks away from reaching that 245.35 channel top, which can contain quarterly buying pressures, as the 215.08 channel bottom can contain quarterly selling pressures. We could, and you can see there's a lot of historic precedents for that, trade inside that band for months to come. This thing had been locked in a consolidated framework for the better part of a year. We did receive a long-term buy signal about a month and a half ago, and that failed a week or two later, and that then indicated the 215.08 channel bottom. So we could trade inside the 215.08 to 245.35 region through Q1 perhaps. But if we do close above 245.35 at the end of any week, and it's almost irrelevant at this point in time because I don't see us testing that for at least several weeks, possibly a month or two. But if so, then this market shows a long-term buy signal that should, over the following possibly in as little as 3 to 5 months. But like the Dow, I'm going to say by the end of Q2, that 288.55 rising channel top, which if or when tested, can contain annual buying pressures if or when tested. But once again, it's not considered an objective unless we close above 245.35 at the end of any week. Let's talk downside once again. We're pretty close still to the 215.08 channel bottom. And if we do close below it this week, then we should, I'm going to say within as little as 3 to 5 weeks, fall to what I consider to be ultra long-term support, presently at 191.72. That is a former channel top we settled above about a year ago, and you can see it goes all the way back to the March 2009 financial crisis low. And so it covers a long span of time, and I would expect that if 191.72 were tested, and once again, if we close this week below 215.08, it becomes a 3 to 5 week objective, that 191.72 former long-term channel top able to absorb selling through 2022. And from there, we can rally back into that consolidative region that has played out in dramatic fashion, really, for the better part of 9 months to a year. We could rally back into that zone and get trapped into a consolidated framework once again, perhaps. But in any event, I think that that's all that really needs to be said for this week's DIA IWM. Please click like and subscribe. Subscribing once again to the Wicked Stocks YouTube channel will apprise you of any content that we put out presently on a daily basis. The Triple Q and the SPY, and on a weekly basis, the IWM and the DIA. And I also post occasional stock pick videos, Bitcoin, so forth and so on. So please subscribe to the Wicked Stocks YouTube channel. And that's all I've got for this week. I'll be back next week, next Sunday, with another edition of the DIA IWM. You have a great week.